Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about an issue that often goes unnoticed but has profound implications for how we understand and engage with the world around us. The representation or the lack thereof Latinos in network news. Latinos make up nearly 20% of the US population, yet their presence in mainstream media is disproportionately small. When they are represented, it's often through narrow, stereotypical lenses. This isn't just a media problem, it's a social one. Media shapes perception, and those perceptions shape policies, attitude, and opportunities. So let's dive into how Latinos language on network news and why this matters. First, first let's talk about the underrepresentation. Latinos are one of the fastest growing demographic groups in US, but you wouldn't know that by watching network news. Studies shows that only 5% of the newsroom staff are Latino. This means that the stories being told about Latinos are often told by people who don't share their experiences or perspectives. When Latinos are uh, when Latinos are absent from the news work, their stories are either ignored or told in a way that lacks depth and nuisance. For example, issues like immigration, education, healthcare, topics that deeply affect Latino communities are often covered without Latino voices at the table. This lack of representation creates a gap in understanding and promotes a cycle of invisibility. Now, let's talk about how Latinos are portrayed when they do appear on network news. Too often, the coverage is dominated by stereotypes. Latinos are frequently depicted as immigrant, criminals, or service workers. These portrayals are not only reductive but also harmful. They ignore the vast diversity within the Latino community, the diversity in culture, profession, and experience. For example, during the 2020 election, Latinos were often portrayed as monolithic voting bloc, ignoring the differences between Cuban Americans in Florida, Mexican Americans in the Southwest, and Puerto Ricans in New York. This kind of misinterpretation reinforces negative stereotypes and erases the complexity of Latino identities. So, what this mean for society? Media representation shapes how we see the world. When Latinos are consistently portrayed in negative or stereotypical ways, it influences public perception. It can lead to biases, discrimination, and even policy decision to harm Latino communities. For example, the constant focus on Latinos immigrants as the problem or threat has fluid anti-immigration sentiment and policies. At the same time, the lack of positive stories about Latino achievement, whether in science, business, or the arts, meaning that many people never see the full picture of what Latino community contribute to the society. Let's look at a few examples during the coverage of immigration issues. The better network news often focuses on crime at the border rather than the stories of families seeking a better life or the economic contribution of immigrants. Similarly, when major events like hurricane or wildfire affect Latino communities, the coverage often lacks depth and fails to highlight the resilience and the strength of those communities. There are some bright spots, though. Latinos-led media outlets and advocacy groups are pushing for charges. For instance, the outlet like Univision and Telemundo provide more nuisance coverage, but they don't have same reach as the mainstream network. The question is why isn't this kind of representation the normal across all the news media? So what can we do about this? First, news Network needs to prioritize diversity, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes as well. Hiring more Latino journalists, producers, and executives will ensure the Latino stories are told authentically and accurately. Second, as consumer of media, we have the power. We can demand better representation by supporting Latino led media outlets and holding mainstream media accountable. We can also amplify positive stories about Latinos on social media and our communities. Finally, we need to recognize that this isn't just a Latino issue, it's an American issue. Accurate representation benefits everyone because it leads to a more informed, empathic, and exclusive society. In conclusion, the way Latinos are represented are not or not represented on network news has real world consequences. It shapes how Latinos are seen and treated in society, and it affects how Latinos see themselves. But it doesn't have to be this way. By pushing for more accurate and inclusive media, we can create a world which everyone's story is told with dignity and respect. Let's not let Latinos languish in the shadows of network news any longer. Let's demand better. Thank you.